The Rams are NFC champions. They are on to Super Bowl 56, and there is one priority ahead of all others that needs to get taken care of at SoFi Stadium in 2 weeks.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all platforms. My name is Travis Rogers, your newest Locked On Rams host. Thanks for checking us out. I am the guy who does the pregame show and the postgame show and has been doing it on the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN LA 710, since the Rams returned from St. Louis 6 years ago. And now they are going to their second Super Bowl in that 6-year window, second time under Sean McVay in the last 4 years. Make sure you check out our Locked On Rams YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Travis Rogers as well. We got everything you need to know about the Rams all year long, but in particular right now getting ready for Super Bowl 56. So this is going to sound amazingly obvious, right? This is the thing that we all talk about when your team, what do you want to do? You want to win, right? But you want to win the Super Bowl more than anything else. And here's what it is. The Rams had a look at this a few years ago in Super Bowl 53, and they didn't get it done because it felt like something that was the beginning of a thing as opposed to the thing itself. This is different. This is an opportunity that does not come along very often, that does not come along in the history of organizations very often, and certainly not in this organization over the last 20 years or so. Let's go back to the greatest show on turf. They win the Super Bowl against the Tennessee Titans, last second tackle on the 1-yard line, Super Bowl champions. What did Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk and Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt and all of those great Rams think when that had happened? This is the beginning of something. We're going to be back. We're going to do this over and over and over again because we have the best running back in football. We have a fleet of wide receivers. We have a Hall of Fame quarterback. We've got a Hall of Fame left tackle in Orlando Pace. We have an incredible defense that can make plays. We're going to go to the Super Bowl over and over again. How'd that work out? They go to the Super Bowl again after that, and who was on the other side? At the time, nobody knew who it was. Nobody was entirely familiar with the name, but you know, it's Tom Brady. It was the Bucs. It was the beginning of the Tom Brady era. That was the first one where no one was quite sure who this guy was, where he came from, what he had done. But wait, he just beat Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner in this thing? Really? That happened? Yeah, it happened. This is what I'm talking about. Let's go back just a few years ago when the Rams were at the beginning of their thing, right? When they hire Sean McVay, his second year as the head coach, they end up in the Super Bowl against the very same Tom Brady and the very same New England Patriots. Even if every other piece of that had been swapped out and changed for a new one other than the quarterback and the head coach, still the same thing. But let's talk about who was on that team, right? I had to write it down because there were so many different turnovers. And this is not ancient history. This is not 10 years ago, 8 years ago. This was just 3 full NFL seasons ago at the end. The Rams' best players on that team were Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, and Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib. These are the names that we're talking about. Big name guys, right? You know who's left from that team that's still here, that's on the team that's going back this year as far as big name goes? Exactly 2 guys. 2 guys. Andrew Whitworth and Aaron Donald. Those are the 2 names. There are some other guys that are still here. I'm not saying that they're the only 2. I'm saying those are the star guys that are still here. New quarterback, new running back, a new team of wide receivers. Here's who's brand new here or didn't play in that game because they were hurt or whatever else might have been going on at the time. You've got a brand new quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Odell Beckham is a Los Angeles Ram. Jalen Ramsey is a Los Angeles Ram. Von Miller is a Los Angeles Ram. Cooper Kupp did not play in that Super Bowl. He was injured there. Now he is not only playing for this team, but he's the best wide receiver in football. This is how quickly these things can change. This is not something that is the beginning of a run. If it is, great, fantastic, and every Rams fan will be thrilled to go to the Super Bowl next year and the year after that and the year after that, and we can start talking about carving Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay's faces into a granite wall in South Dakota. That'll be fantastic. In the meantime, let's take care of this one. In the meantime, let's treat this one like it's the last game that this group of guys is ever going to play together, because it probably will be. It turns over fast. That team in Atlanta a few years ago, some of these guys are out of the league. Jared Goff is on a Detroit team that who knows how that's going to go. Todd Gurley, I don't know what he's doing, but he's not playing in the NFL anymore. Brandon Cooks continues to float around in the NFL. Robert Woods is hurt. He's unavailable. He got hurt in the middle of this season, as we all knew. And Ndamukong Suh is in Tampa and just got knocked out by this same Rams team. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, John Johnson, Greg Zuerlein is in Dallas. You turn over the special teams players as well. So many guys that felt like they were at the beginning of something, never got back, and when it did finally turn, most of them were gone. Aaron Donald and Andrew Whitworth. Those are the two guys, and of course, Sean McVay. Sean McVay is back for a second time, and this is incredibly important because having gone through anything, I don't care what it is, if you've been through it once, the second time you go through it, you're a little more familiar, you're a little more comfortable, you're a little more relaxed. And look, there are a lot of traits that Sean McVay has. I don't know if being relaxed is necessarily one of them. He seems like a guy that's wound pretty tight, pretty regimented guy, but just even with his personality, the way that it is, having it set up like this with an opportunity to go back to a Super Bowl in a relatively short period of time, knowing the lay of the land, knowing the media obligations that come, knowing how people are coming at you left and right, asking you for this and that. It's a huge deal for him. It is a huge deal for him getting to go through it. And the opposite of this is true on the other side as well. Think about where Cincinnati is. The most diehard Cincinnati Bengal fan in the world was probably thinking, you know what, if everything breaks exactly right for us, I think we can get into the playoffs. Maybe in your wildest dreams, we can win the AFC North. Maybe that's something that can happen. Maybe Lamar Jackson gets hurt again, check that box. Maybe the Browns regress, check that box. Maybe Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers are 1,000 years old and they regress, check that box. Here they are, division champions. That was a great season for the Cincinnati Bengals. Legitimately, no shade being thrown. There's nobody that thought this team was going to the Super Bowl this year. Nobody. And good on them. Good for them for getting here. But this is what that felt like for the Rams a couple of years ago. Hey, this is the beginning of something. We got the number one overall pick at quarterback. We got a guy that's figured it out. We got some playmakers outside. We got a transcendent defensive player. We got a brand new head coach that seems to have a really good, firm grasp on how the NFL works. Let's get this party started. Let's go to the Super Bowl. Let's see what happens. Let's see how many of these things we can start stacking up in a row. Tell me that's not Zach Taylor. Tell me that's not Joe Burrow. Tell me that's not a team with Joe Mixon like Todd Gurley, just a dynamic back that can make a whole bunch of plays along the way. The happy to be here factor. Nobody's going to say it. It's not something that they sit around and tell each other, hey, you know what, even when we lose the game, it's still pretty cool. We still got to go to the Super Bowl. It's not how it works. It's internal. It's something that just kind of lives inside you where you're like, we are so far out of where we're supposed to be. Whatever happens after this is gravy. And then there's the Rams side, which is we were here just a few years ago. We might have taken it for granted a little bit. I have no idea what's going to happen next. If Jaquiski Tartt catches that ball, the Rams aren't here. If Tom Brady has another minute on the clock in Tampa Bay, who knows if they're here. If they don't take care of business the way that they did, scoring 3 times in the fourth quarter a couple of nights ago at SoFi Stadium, they're not here. This stuff takes really good players, which the Rams have, a really good coach, which the Rams have, and a little bit of luck, which you never, ever can count on because you don't know when it's coming and you don't know when it's leaving. And they got it done. That's what they have to do going into this game, is make sure that they understand that this is not the beginning of anything. This is the destination for this season, and everything that they've accomplished is going to be something that's a kind of a footnote to history if they don't win it. Good season, for sure. Great start from Matthew Stafford, for sure. Another incredible season for Sean McVay as the head coach of this team, no doubt about it. A success? No, probably not. That's what happens when you go all in like this, and that's what they need to take care of in a couple of Sundays at SoFi Stadium. All right, coming up in just a minute, we're going to talk about who's happier, who won this more, right? The Rams in getting Matthew Stafford, or Matthew Stafford in getting the Los Angeles Rams. That's coming up in just a little bit. But first, I'm going to tell you about Bet Online, right? There might be less football being played. We're down to the last couple of teams, but betonline.net has way more odds and more information for this playoff season. Scores, totals, player performance props, to where the next coach that gets fired is going to land. BetOnline is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. Who doesn't like betting on which the next coach is going to get canned? That's always fun. Just pick Jacksonville. That's a good start. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC odds coverage, best in the business. You're not going to find it better anywhere else. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, thanks again for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. You can find us free and available on all platforms. So what's the answer to the question? Who had the better buy? Right? Sometimes you get a trade where one guy wins, the other guy loses. One team feels great about it, another team feels terrible about it. And then you have the opposite too, where maybe both sides feel like, you know what, this didn't work out for us at all. That seems to be the one more often than not that if you could do it over again, I don't know if you'd do it in the first place on either side. And then there's the one that works out for everybody. Everybody's thrilled for it. And I'm not even talking about the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford. I'm talking about the Rams and Matthew Stafford. Think about this. We've spent a ton of time in the short period of time that I've been back on this podcast, a couple of weeks. We've talked about Matthew Stafford being the reason that the Rams are in the Super Bowl. The Rams do not win in Tampa without Matthew Stafford playing the way that he did. The Rams do not beat the San Francisco 49ers without him playing the way he did in the fourth quarter. They were not doing that with the other guy. And we've talked about that over and over and over again because it's true. Sean McVay said it. Les Snead said it. They needed to get better at the quarterback position, and they did. And here they are. And it's a perfect fit. But what about from the other side? We've spent so much time looking at this from the Rams' perspective. What about from Matthew Stafford's perspective? And what I mean is, think about this. As nice as it's been as Rams fans to see a real NFL quarterback come this way and perform like this, think about what it was like for him. This is somebody that had spent 12 years in Detroit with the Lions, #1 overall pick from 2009 through last season, the 2020 season, right? He had a handful of winning records and mostly disaster, mostly unbelievably unfulfilling seasons. 2-14 season, a 4-12 season, a 6-10 season, a 3-12-1 season, a 5-11 season, and exactly 3 playoff appearances in 12 years and 3 playoff losses. You can talk about the Lions organization. You can talk about their inability to draft and develop, to maintain a positive culture, to identify the right coach, to put them in a good spot. All of these things are probably true. And Matthew Stafford is probably looking around saying, all right, I can play at the highest level in this league. I can play with anybody. I've got a guy like Calvin Johnson who can play with anybody in this league for a good portion of it. But I'm looking around and this isn't good enough. I know it's not good enough. I see what Green Bay's doing. I see what some of the other top teams in the NFC look like, and I can't match that. Or more importantly, my organization can't match that. That's where he was. And he went to the organization and to the city, really, and said, listen, this isn't working. This doesn't work for me. I've given you 12 years of my career. I've given you everything I have to give you, and we can't get out of the first round, and we almost never even get to the first round. So he asked to get moved. The organization accommodates him. There are 31 other teams in the NFL, and I get it. He wasn't going to go to Jacksonville or the Jets or something like that where they're a million miles away from being a competitive team. He was only going to wind up on a team that it was at least decent. But think about where he landed. This wasn't just, hey, I'm on a team now that actually functions. I'm on a team now that can find a way to win some games, that's expected to go to the playoffs, that if things break the right way, maybe you win a few playoff games. If everything goes the right way, maybe you win in the playoffs. Maybe you win a Super Bowl. It's that, and I'm going to go play for one of the most dynamic head coaches in the NFL. I'm going to go play in a city that just built a $5 billion football stadium that's the crown jewel of the NFL. I'm going to go play for the most dynamic coach in the league, in the most unbelievable stadium in the league. And who do I throw to? The best wide receiver in the league? Okay. He's going to win the Triple Crown, in part because I'm really good, but in part because he's really good as well. He can get open seemingly anytime he wants. And if my other #1 wide receiver, Robert Woods, gets hurt, they're going to go out and get me Odell Beckham Jr., a guy that was on the short list of best wide receiver in the league just a few years ago before wasting away in Cleveland where they didn't know what to do with him. We got a defense that has Aaron Donald on it. And if that's not good enough, we got Jalen Ramsey on the same defense. And oh, by the way, if that's not working out exactly the way that you want it, we're going to go out and get Von Miller in the middle of the season to go get opposing quarterbacks. This is the team that I'm joining. I know that the Rams are thrilled with everything that they've gotten from Matthew Stafford, but I don't know if Matthew Stafford didn't get more from them. Think about it. Where else could you have gone where you would have been given a bigger palette to paint with? Where you would have been given more of the things in your wildest dreams. What do you want? Best stadium in football, check. Incredibly dynamic, offensive-minded head coach who's a quarterback whisperer, check. Can I have the best wide receiver in football? Yeah. Can you give me another guy who's a all-pro level player? Yeah, we got that. A defense that on the days where maybe I'm not quite as good as I need to be, they can make some stops, they can make some plays, they can keep us in the game. I don't know, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey. How's that sound? The marriage could not be any better between the two sides, and I'm not sure that Matthew Stafford didn't get just maybe it's a 51-49 break in his favor. The Rams wouldn't redo it for anything in the world. But if you told Matthew Stafford, when he and Sean McVay run into each other in Cabo a handful of years ago, that this is how this was going to go, I don't think anybody's believing it. Could we be good? Sure. Think about it. Von Miller wasn't here. Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't here. Nobody knew exactly how good this was going to be, exactly how good the pieces were going to fit together. You can draw something up all you want and feel, hey, it might be a pretty good combination. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, I bet you that would work really, really well together. Like this. You think, okay, it's an A. You mix it together, you're going to get an A on that project. This is an A triple plus. And he's got an opportunity to absolutely take it to this point where there are no yeah buts, where there are no, well, you didn't, or you could have, or you might have had a chance to's. They win the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks, and it might be the greatest all-in trade that we've seen in the NFL in a very, very long time. And we saw a pretty big one with Tom Brady in Tampa just a year ago where Rob Gronkowski comes in. But this is Tom Brady. This is a guy that came in with literally a handful plus one of Super Bowl championships. Been to the Super Bowl 9 times. There's nothing left for him to prove. He knows what it looks like. He is it. He doesn't have to go find it. He brings it with him. And Matthew Stafford, as good as he is, he wasn't bringing it with him. He brought a bunch of question marks, brought a big arm, a great attitude, hardworking, brought a good football mind, brought all of those things here. And then the Rams gave him every possible advantage that anybody could have ever wanted in that situation. And he picked it up and he ran with it. And he was absolutely great along the way. Just fantastic. And now you got an opportunity to knock it out of the park, win the Super Bowl. And we're talking one of the greatest trades in NFL history. Okay, so injury update. Coming up next, we'll talk about whether or not the Rams are going to get some of their players back and somebody that just did come back, Andrew Whitworth, whether or not this could be his last game in the NFL. But not before we talk about Rock Auto, right? If you're anything like, I don't know, everybody, you'll like to save money, right? And maybe you don't know exactly what it is that you're trying to do, or maybe you don't know exactly the part that you need. This is where Rock Auto comes in. This is where they can take such good care of you and your car. You go into those places, right? You go into the brick and mortar stores and they're asking you questions. I don't know, man. I just need this piece for this car. Can you please help me find it? They got to look it up in the computer and they got to do all those other things. Save your time, save your money when you're using Rock Auto. Save 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the other places that are charging all these crazy prices for the same parts, a dealership, chain store, right? A fuel pump instance for Honda Odyssey, about $350 from a chain store, $216 from Rock Auto. Who doesn't want to do that? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? Locked On, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, so lastly, let's start with the injury update. Tyler Higbee's knee. He's got an MCL sprain, and he is being described as day-to-day heading to the Super Bowl. It's a big deal. The Rams have a ton of weapons, like we've talked about them, on this pod today, on all the pods that we've done. We talked about Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. and Cam Akers, and now you got Sony Michel is in the mix too, and you've got guys like Van Jefferson who can make plays, and certainly Odell Beckham Jr. has been a fantastic addition to the team. But Tyler Higbee's kind of that guy that will make 3 or 4 catches a game. They almost always pick up pretty good yardage, big first down target, somebody that takes advantage of the middle of that field. They're going to need him. As good as Kendall Blanton was, and coming off the NFC Championship game, I was blown away by how high of a performance he was able to turn in. Somebody that really had not been counted on a whole lot this regular season. He was not expected to be the number 2 guy. He was certainly not expected to be a guy that never comes off the field in the NFC Championship game and catches a handful of passes. He did a great job. Can he do it again? Yeah, maybe. And he might have to. So we'll see what it looks like. But not having Tyler Higbee going into this is a big deal. He's somebody that you have to account for when you're game planning against the Rams. Maybe he's not number 1 or 2 or maybe even number 3, but he's going to get the ball a few times. And what do they say, right? A tight end is a quarterback's best friend, especially in some of those third down situations. So keep your eyes on that. We'll keep you up to speed here on Locked On Rams on how that's going to go along the way. But he is officially listed as day-to-day as you work through this. And I was talking with some people last night in and around the Rams who seem to be maybe a little bit skeptical about whether or not he's going to be able to bounce back. Today's reports sound a little bit more optimistic, but who knows? Whenever you see a guy get hurt like that and immediately leave the field, immediately go into the locker room to get some x-rays or an MRI or whatever it might be, that's a little bit more troubling than somebody that just goes to the sidelines, gets it rubbed down, trainer tries to tape it up, whatever, go into the mystery medical tent there on the sidelines, the blue tent, and maybe you come back, maybe you don't. When you go straight to the locker room, never good news. So we'll see how that shakes out. As far as other players that may be able to come back by the time the Super Bowl rolls around, Sebastian Joseph's Day name has gotten bandied about a little bit. We'll see whether or not he's ready to go. That would be another big presence. Remember, Seabass was having a very big season this year. Had a good season last year in the middle there. Now, Greg Gaines slide in and has done a terrific job. So this isn't a matter of you need to come and have Sebastian Joseph Day come back and perform at a level that's a little bit better than you have seen previously because the guy that's in there spelling him isn't carrying his weight. That's not what it is at all. Greg Gaines has been very, very good. I thought he should have made the Pro Bowl along the way, but this is just more good players. This is good news. So perhaps he could be back. Robert Rochelle potentially could be back. I think the Rams could use whatever help they can get in the secondary at any point that they can get it. I mean, with all due respect to Eric Weddle that's come in, and I'm not saying that you cut him loose or anything like that. I'm just saying that more bodies in that particular meeting room is very, very good news. That's something that maybe can come back. And then Darrell Henderson is the last name that Sean McVay said, they're going to try and see what they can do. They need to talk to the training staff. They need to figure out exactly the roster flexibility that they have. But there is a chance that 1, 2, or maybe all 3 of those guys could potentially come back for a Super Bowl run. I think of all of them, I think Darrell Henderson is probably the least important of that group because, look, depth, right? You're talking about, when we're talking about Higbee, he's your guy. Kendall Blanton is the depth. He's the guy, the break the glass in case of emergency guy. Well, it's broken. You've swept it up and you've thrown it in the trash can, and he's playing right now. So Higbee is probably at the top of that list. But at the other end, I think it's got to be Henderson. Cam Akers, very, very capable. Sony Michel, very, very capable. And I don't mean to say this disrespectfully at all about Darrell Henderson and what he's brought to this team at this point, but have you felt that he's been missed at any time since he went down with his injury? I haven't. I thought that Sony Michel stepped in incredibly well in the moment, and then when the depth wasn't there, he was able to carry the water just about every single time, and then finally Cam Akers comes back. He's ready to go, and he's been terrific as well. Fumble problem aside, and hopefully that's in the rearview mirror after the way that he played on Sunday against the Niners. But it seems like you have plenty of depth at that position. The tight end is at the top of the list, the running backs at the back of the list, and I would think that maybe Sebastian Joseph Day there, not a bad addition there in the middle as well, and any help you can get in the secondary, certainly welcome at this point as well. And can I just say it one more time? I am just absolutely blown away that Jaquiski Tartt dropped that ball. There were so many little things that had to break your way. He needs to drop that. Odell is a great throw. It's a great catch. Then tack 15 more on because Jimmy Ward hits Odell in the head. Now all of a sudden you go from deep in your own end to the plus side of the field. You're getting close to field goal range at that point. So many things that needed to break right did for the Rams. And now we got a week and change to get ready for Super Bowl 56. Coming up on Wednesday's Locked On Rams, we'll start talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and why they give me a very bad feeling about something I've seen before. That's coming up next time on Locked On Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Don't forget to check out our Locked On Rams YouTube channel. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Travis Rogers. That's a good place to do it as well. Now, for your second listen, let's make that Locked On Bets. It's hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis from Lee Sterling. So make sure that you check that show out as well. Until then, whose house? It's Locked On Rams' house.